Hey, what is up, my YouTubian subscribers? Geared here to do my review on RWBY Volume 5, Chapter 3, Unforeseen Circumstances. Basically, if you don't know, I do spoil the episode, so leave if you haven't watched it yet. It's a good episode. I liked it a lot. It did do some. It corrected. You can tell that Carrie and oh, what's the other guy's name now? The writers. You can tell that the writers did learn from their mistakes and the mistakes people have pointed out. So critics have changed RWBY for the better in this chapter, at least. And I'll talk about that when I reach that part of the chapter. But let's go on. Basically, the chapter opens up with Blake and company, Blake's family, holding a speech. Now, the speech basically goes like Gira says that essentially he never agreed with Sienna Khan. He when he led the Wei Fang, he believed you could achieve equality through peaceful protest. And while Sienna Khan on the other hand thought that you can achieve equality, but you also had to be willing to violently protest in order to achieve equality. And Adam Torres is just like never look for. He's the violent extremist. He goes looking for a fight. He's no longer about peaceful equality. He's for subjugation, human subjugation. Now, there's no hiding that. The last chapter, he pretty much said it. He doesn't even hide it. He's like, we're better than humans. We're humans plus our animal parts. So yeah, we learn that pretty much. Yeah, he says that that's all that's gonna lead to is basically an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Essentially, he says that in order to show the humans that there is peaceful faunus, he wants them to go help. He reveals to the people of Menagerie that Adam is gonna attack Haven in 2 months. When Haven's doors open up for school, that's when Adam's gonna attack. Now this is where I was talking about them correcting for their past mistakes. Now in if you don't know, in volume 4, Yang's storyline takes place across a couple of months. Not a couple of weeks, not a couple of days, months. However, the way they shot it with each time we see Yang is just a different part of a day. Like morning, evening, night. We see, and then the next morning when she's training with her dad. Pretty much that led people to believe, like it just felt rushed. It gave us false sense that we just seen one day with Yang during the entire storyline of Volume 4 when it was a couple of months that had passed. And this was compounded near the end of Volume 4 with Yang getting from Patch to the fork in the road leading to Oniyuri or Kuroyuri and Haven, where where RWBY and company made their decision for them to split up. Ren and them go to one day way, Ren and Nora go one way, Jean, Crow, and RWBY go the other. It felt like it was, and then the statement that it was a few days by Atlas to lock down the borders, it made people think that Yang had somehow crossed two continents in a couple of days. Now, to me, no, this had like they didn't do a good job illustrating it, but this had taken place over a couple of months, like I said. So them giving a 2 months here, and then when we go forward to RWBY and Ranger storyline, we learn from Osman that in fact it's a month till Haven opens its doors. So we know that Blake's storyline takes place a month before RWBY, Yang, and Weiss's storyline, which is good. That's solid. It's something as simple as that, a throwaway line that looks to be a throwaway line by two characters is enough for people like me to say, okay, so we know now Blake's storyline takes place before the rest of the main cast. So when she shows up in Haven near the end of the volume, it's gonna make sense. They're gonna move their troops or get moving their troops, and it's not like it's a super big distance. If you look at the map of Remnant, they're next door neighbors. Now there is a small ocean or a small canal that needs to be, well, not small, it looks to be a couple hundred of miles across, but they're next door neighbors essentially. Menagerie is a small island off the coast of Haven, so it's gonna make sense when they go to Haven, when Blake and company show up at Haven in at the same time that Adam Torres attacks, at the same time that Team Rangers done their training. Gira then gives the mic to Blake, who basically doesn't get to say anything. Ilya makes a big deal. She's like, traitors, the Belladonnas, don't follow the Belladonnas. Adam's trying to do what's right for the Faunus. Gira cuts in and says that there is always a peaceful resolution to most situations, and I agree with Gira. We then cut away to Team Ranger. Now, most of Team Ranger is in fact Oscar. Now, partway through the conversation with Oscar and Crow, Oscar gives full control to Ozpin. Ozpin then tells his story. He's not the god. He's not the elder brother, and Salem's not the younger brother, which was the main theory of Volume 4, that Ozpin and Oscar, or Ozpin and Salem were the two brothers that Crow talked about. No, he's not that. He's a man cursed by the gods. Now, does this take away the theory that Ozpin is the old man? No. 4 schools, 4 relics, 4 maidens. That's too much of a coincidence for me to say that Ozpin isn't the old man from the story of the 4 seasons, from the story of the 4 maidens. But it does confirm that he isn't the elder brother. He's just a man who was cursed by the gods because he failed to kill Salem during their first confrontation in Ozpin's first body. He then reveals that eventually what happens is his mind, his soul is gonna be assimilated into Oscar's mind and soul, and that all of the compounded skills and abilities of Ozpin will eventually transfer over to Oscar. Now, Oscar doesn't instantly. This isn't a situation where he instantly learns all of Ozpin's skills and abilities. No, the guy still needs to train. He needs to build up the muscle memory, or regain the muscle memory that Ozpin will transfer over to him. But eventually he'll be a better Ozpin than Ozpin was, because each time he dies, he takes all the skills and abilities, compounds them, and keeps on growing and growing and growing. Now, this puts into question how old Ozpin was, because to me, there's no other way that Cinder wins that fight. She's an untrained maiden. Yeah, she's a maiden, but she's an untrained maiden with almost she destroyed Pyrrha in the fight. She was caught off guard multiple times during the fight with Pyrrha. So to me, no, she shouldn't have won that fight if Ozpin was at 100% the young man. Now, he was clearly an older person, and because the nature of RWBY's animation style, we can't tell just how old he is, but I imagine he was quite old if he did lose to just raw strength of a maiden, when he has thousands of years of experience compounded on one another. That being said, Crow then explains that they don't trust Lionheart anymore, when Nora makes a comment that they should just go take mini baby Ozpin over to Lionheart to prove that he's still alive. Crow and Ozpin put the kibosh on that. They're like, nah, something's up with Leo. He's acting sketchy. He's not doing what he should have done when I died. And then we learn that he's gonna train. While he trains Team Ranger, he's gonna be training Oscar to adopt the muscle memory, adopt the skills and abilities of Ozpin. He's like, Ruby, you need to learn to use your hands, because you're not going to always have Crescent Rose, and you're virtually defenseless without it. John, while your skills have improved, you need your semblance. And then we cut away to Weiss. Now, Weiss is the biggest issue with this. Like, last volume, it was Blake's storyline. People really started hating on Blake because of the last volume. This time, I think it's going to be Weiss. Because Weiss's storyline has so many, the storyline itself is okay, but the content of the storyline is what's the issue. Like, the whole idea that she's taken by the bandits. Now she's taken by bandits. They taunt her for a few minutes. She says that she threatens them with Winter Schnee. They laugh at her because apparently the Atlas military pulled out when the borders closed. So Winter isn't in Haven anymore. We then meet the Spring Maiden. Now, we don't know if this chick is the Spring Maiden, but it's pretty implied by the opening triumph that she's the Spring Maiden. She taunts Weiss for a bit. She has Murdenster. She has Weiss's sword. So that makes me question whether she's gonna fight this maiden or not. Probably, I don't imagine. I hope Weiss isn't stupid enough to challenge the maiden to a fight. Now she doesn't know she's a maiden, but she does know she's surrounded by bandits, and one of them, Raven Bronwyn, is a hyper powerful huntress. So I don't know. I don't know. This is good. This might be leading up to the Emerald Weiss fight that was foreshadowed back in the Volume 2 opening. In my opinion, that's the fight that should happen, not the Spring Maiden versus Weiss, because that's a licking happening. We then get one of the most bullshit moments of this volume. Weiss basically, they leave Weiss alone. She then summons, which is the idea that she uses her glyphs isn't the issue. Her glyphs are her semblance, so that doesn't need dust. Yes, like most semblances, she infuses it with dust. Like Blake can infuse her clones with dust. She does infuse her glyphs with dust. The main issue is that she summons a knight that's 5 inches tall. Now, my main issue is that this has never been foreshadowed, never implied by never implied by Winter, never implied ever before that. Winter has only ever summoned full-size the Beowulf, so full-sized birds. Weiss has only ever summoned full-sized versions of her knight. Now, I guess you can say it was foreshadowed in the Atlesian. Now that I'm thinking about it, the Atlesian mech fight during Volume 3, when she summons just the arm, it's much, much bigger than the knight's arm should have been. That being said, like, had the time skip been done properly, and we seen that Weiss, like, had she been able to summon before Volume 4 opened up and she was just learning to use her summonings in Volume 4, fine. But the way I see it, this is just too much, too fast. The teleporting the knight last episode, and this episode shrinking the knight down to 5 inches tall, is just too much, too quickly, without enough foreshadowing. And now I know I'm gonna get hated for this. Go ahead, comment down below. Tell me how stupid I am. Tell me how I hate RWBY. Tell me how I don't know nothing. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Tell me. Just go ahead. Say anything you want. But I don't think Weiss should be able to do this. Weiss is powerful. She's one of the most skilled characters in the series. I think in terms of raw skill, she's probably the best member of Team RWBY. Yeah, she's the least powerful because you have Yang, who gets stronger every time she gets hit. Blake, whose semblance is amazing in combat, and RWBY, whose semblance is amazing in combat, and she's using a freaking foil. But I think her semblance, her skills, her speed, they all are top notch. But I don't think this is just going a level beyond what I thought Weiss was capable of. That being said, like I said, outside of Weiss, I like this chapter. I think that Blake's storyline from last volume to this volume is infinitely better. Now, a lot of people are gonna hate on Blake simply because of last volume. I always look at the new volumes as a new story being told. I hope that beginning to end there is a storyline that you can follow from the beginning of one volume to the end of the volume, and then there's an overarching volume 1 to volume 5 storyline that needs to be told. But being said, yeah, the reunition of Team RWBY is the main story of this volume. Last volume it was just getting over the pain of Beacon's fall. This volume it's the reemergence of Team RWBY. And to me, like, the storytelling has increased tenfold. It's much, much better. There's less fluff. It feels like every single time, and the chapters are longer, which is good. The 15-minute chapters were kind of too small. They rushed things, and then when they didn't rush things, they put fluff in. They put too much fluff in Volume 4, and it just felt bloated by the end of it. Not bloated in a good way. It felt like there was just useless things. The fact that from chapter 1 to chapter 12, it felt like just walking for Team Ranger. Yeah, and it felt like Ranger wasn't necessary. It felt like they should have did more with Yang, did more with Blake, or not did more, but did Blake's storyline better and more with Weiss. Because then things like this happen where Weiss is summoning a 5-inch tall knight, where Weiss is teleporting her knights after only summoning it successfully once. Anyways, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, hate me. Hate me. I accept that for my opinion. Have a nice day. Security signing off.